All right, and welcome while we go over the Tariff of Abominations. I hope you haven't forgotten what this is because it's back. And remember, the Tariff of Abominations was a targeted tax on the South, or at least that's what the South felt like it was. And remember, a tariff is a tax on foreign goods. So if I live in part of the country and I want to buy something from another country entirely, if there's a tariff, I'm going to pay an artificially higher price for those goods. Or if I bought something that was made in my country, then I wouldn't have to pay that tariff because it wasn't made in another country. So, and the Tariff of Abominations became law on May 19th, 1828. So, if you remember, the Tariff of Abominations was the name that outraged Southerners gave to a tariff passed in 1828. Residents of the South believed that the tax on imports was excessive and unfairly targeted their region of the country. It has also been called the Tariff of 1828 because that's its actual official name. It's just been called Tariff of Abominations so many times, that's just what people tend to call it. But its actual name is Tariff of 1828. It's a very exciting name. Oh my goodness, it's not bland and predictable at all. So, these tariffs are taxes imposed on imports designed to raise their prices, which would make them less attractive to consumers and thus protecting domestic industries, domestic means home, from foreign competition. The tariff, which became law in the spring of 1828, set a very high duty, taxes, in other words, on goods imported into the United States. And by doing so, it did create some major economic problems for the South. As the South was not a manufacturing center, it had to either import finished goods from Europe, primarily Great Britain, or buy the goods that were made in the North. Adding insult to injury, the law had been obviously devised to protect manufacturers in the Northeast. With a protective tariff essentially creating artificially high prices, the consumers in the South found themselves at a severe disadvantage when buying products from either northern or foreign manufacturers. Basically, because of the tariff, you either had to pay more money to buy it from Great Britain, or you had to buy it from the North, but it wasn't going to be as good. Do you want the inferior but cheaper product, or do you want to pay more money and get something better? But before 1828, you could pay cheaper prices for the better stuff from another country. It was just this law that was artificially making it that way. The 1828 tariff created a further problem for the South as it restricted business specifically with England, and that, in turn, it made it more difficult for the English to afford to be able to buy cotton grown in the South. Intense feelings about the Tariff of Abomination prompted John C. Calhoun to anonymously write essays setting forth his theory of nullification. Nullification in United States constitutional theory is a legal theory that a state has the right to nullify or invalidate any federal law which that state has deemed unconstitutional with respect to the United States Constitution as opposed to the state's own constitution. Calhoun's protest against the federal government eventually leads to the Nullification Crisis. So, the Tariff of Abominations, it did not actually lead to any real extreme action, such as secession by the state of California, South Carolina. In 1828, the tariff greatly increased resentment toward the North, which was a feeling that persisted for decades and helped lead the nation toward the Civil War. So if I was going to boil it all down and make it a little bit more simple, I would say that Southerners were very concerned with states' rights, and they did not like high tariffs because they made stuff that they were going to buy more expensive. In 1824, a tariff went from 23% to 37%, already angering the Southerners. And then in 1828, the tariff was raised to 45%. Southerners were outraged. They thought that the tariff discriminated specifically against them because, number one, they were going to end up having to pay more for goods while the North was going to make money because they made the stuff that the tariff was protecting. And number two, Great Britain would probably retaliate with high tariffs and would buy less cotton. So number one, the South is going to have to pay more for stuff. And number two, their cotton is going to be worth less. They're going to make less money on their cotton. So, hope you're learning, and I hope you're having fun.